The sun poured a golden light into the dining room of their home in Austin, Texas, where Ethan and Olivia sat quietly at the table. Weekend breakfasts had always been their favorite routine, a chance to slow down and enjoy each other's company. Ethan, 39, a meticulous and thoughtful architect, sipped his coffee, his sharp blue eyes resting on Olivia. She looked radiant as ever, her wavy brunette hair catching the morning light. Though her energy felt distant, disconnected, from an outsider's perspective, they seemed like the perfect couple. Their modern house was a testament to Ethan's design expertise, and Olivia's work as a marketing director for a luxury beauty brand brought a touch of elegance to their life. But Ethan felt something had shifted. It wasn't just her lingering glances at her phone during meals or her muted responses to his jokes. For months, Olivia had been spending longer getting ready for work, coming home late, and flashing smiles that no longer reached her green eyes. "Hey, Ethan," she said, her voice cutting through the quiet hum of the ceiling fan. Olivia looked up from her phone, startled. "Yeah? You seemed off lately," Ethan said, forcing a small smile. "Is everything okay?" Olivia hesitated, her slender fingers tracing the edge of her coffee mug. "Of course, work's just been a lot lately. You know how it is." Ethan nodded, though the unease brewing in his chest refused to settle. That evening, Ethan suggested dinner at an Italian restaurant they loved downtown. He hoped a change of scenery might rekindle their connection. Olivia agreed, though her smile felt more polite than genuine. The restaurant was as warm and inviting as Ethan remembered, with soft candlelight dancing on the walls and the hum of quiet conversations. Ethan tried to focus on the evening, but Olivia's distracted air was impossible to ignore. She kept glancing around the room, her hands fiddling with a napkin in her lap. As their entree arrived, she finally broke the silence. "Ethan," she began, her voice tentative, "I've been thinking maybe we need to try something different, something to bring back what we've lost." Ethan paused, setting his fork down. "What do you mean?" he asked, avoiding his gaze. Her eyes were fixed on her plate, like giving each other a little freedom, just for one night, no questions, no strings, a chance to explore. Ethan stared at her, his expression unreadable. "A free pass," he said flatly. "It's not about not loving you," Olivia said quickly, her voice rising defensively. "It's just I think it could help us shake things up." The words felt like a knife in Ethan's chest. "You think this will help us?" he asked, his tone measured, though his knuckles whitened as he gripped his glass of wine. Olivia hesitated before nodding. "It's just a thought," she added softly. "I think we should at least consider it." Ethan didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed next to Olivia, staring at the ceiling as her steady breathing filled the room. Her suggestion looped in his mind, a cruel echo that refused to fade. He couldn't shake the thought that the woman he had built his life with was drifting further away. The next morning, Olivia seemed lighter, almost relieved, as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She hummed to herself as she spread butter on her toast, her demeanor strangely cheerful. "I was thinking," she said casually, glancing up at him, "we should redecorate the living room, a fresh start, you know." Ethan forced a smile, though his stomach churned. "Sure, whatever you want." Inside, he thought bitterly, is that all this is to her? Rearranging furniture while everything else falls apart. Days passed, and Olivia's mood only seemed to improve. She spent more time perfecting her makeup, and her laughter, once shared freely with Ethan, felt foreign, detached. One evening, as she came downstairs dressed in a fitted black dress that Ethan hadn't seen in years, he couldn't hide his reaction. "Wow," he said, his throat tightening as he looked at her. "You look incredible." Her cheeks flushed, and she offered a small, coy smile. "Thanks," she said, brushing past him. "Just meeting some friends for drinks." Ethan's jaw tightened as he watched her leave, the sound of her heels clicking against the floor fading as the door closed. He stood in the empty house, the silence pressing in on him. By the next weekend, Olivia's suggestion became more than just words. She approached Ethan as he worked in his study, her tone carefully measured. "About what I mentioned the other night," she began, leaning against the doorframe. Ethan looked up from his laptop, his expression unreadable. "You mean your free pass?" "Don't call it that," she said quickly, her cheeks coloring. It's not about being with someone else, Ethan. It's about feeling something again for both of us. And you think this is the answer? He asked, his voice calm but cold. I don't know, she admitted, crossing her arms. I just know I can't keep pretending everything's fine when it's not. Ethan nodded slowly, his gaze hardening. If that's what you need, Olivia, I won't stand in your way. Her relief was palpable, though she tried to hide it. Thank you, Ethan. I knew you'd understand. But as she turned to leave, Ethan's mind was already racing. The first threads of a plan were forming. That evening, as Olivia stepped out for what she called a night with friends, Ethan wasn't idle. He opened his laptop and began gathering information, bank statements, property deeds, anything he might need if the marriage unraveled further. He texted his best friend, Ryan, asking to meet up the next day at Ryan's house. Ethan confided everything, his frustration and heartbreak spilling out. I can't believe she'd even suggest this, Ethan said, pacing the room. Ryan, always the voice of reason, leaned back in his chair. Look, man, you've got to protect yourself. If she's already checked out, you can't let her take everything. Ethan nodded. That's why I need your help. I need a backup plan, just in case. When Olivia announced the night she planned to use her pass, Ethan kept his face neutral, masking the storm inside. You're okay with this? She asked hesitantly, her tone almost apologetic but tinged with excitement. Ethan shrugged, leaning against the kitchen counter. If it's what you need, Olivia, I won't stop you. She smiled, a mix of relief and nervousness, and kissed him lightly on the cheek. Thank you, Ethan. I mean it. As the door clicked shut behind her, Ethan stood in the silence of their home. The weight of her absence was heavier than ever, but he wasn't passive. He poured himself a whiskey. The amber liquid caught the dim kitchen light as he sat at the table, his thoughts churning. An hour later, he called Ryan. She's out, Ethan said simply. You sure you want to go through with this? Ryan asked from the other end. Ethan's jaw tightened. I didn't ask for this. She did. I'm just making sure I'm not left in the dark. When Olivia returned home late that night, her hair slightly tousled and makeup smudged, Ethan pretended to be asleep on the couch. She moved quietly past him, muttering something about just dinner, before disappearing into their bedroom. The next morning, Olivia seemed unusually affectionate. She brought Ethan coffee in bed and leaned in to kiss him on the cheek. I was thinking, she said brightly, we should take a trip, just the two of us, somewhere we can really reconnect. Ethan smiled faintly, hiding the turmoil roiling inside. Sure, let's talk about it later. But as Olivia left for work, Ethan wasn't thinking about vacations. He was finalizing his own plans. Over the following days, Ethan began setting things in motion. He met with a lawyer to safeguard his finances, quietly moved personal belongings to Ryan's house, and prepared for the worst-case scenario. Meanwhile, Olivia's behavior grew more carefree, as if her freedom had lifted an invisible weight. She laughed more, dressed sharper, and seemed lighter. One evening, she emerged from the bedroom in a shimmering red dress Ethan hadn't seen in years. How do I look? She asked, spinning slowly. You look beautiful, Ethan said, his tone carefully neutral. She smiled, beaming. Meeting some friends again. Don't wait up. Ethan watched her leave, the door closing with a soft thud. This time, he didn't feel anger. He felt resolve. The night Olivia used her pass, Ethan knew she wouldn't suspect a thing. He acted as if everything was fine, even encouraging her to enjoy herself as she left. He poured himself another drink and waited. Hours passed, each minute stretching endlessly, but Ethan's mind was calm and focused. When Olivia finally returned, her excuses were hurried and vague. Ethan didn't press her. He simply observed each piece of her behavior, adding to the puzzle in his mind. The next morning, Ethan made a quiet but bold move. He posted a photo on social media, a casual picture with a female colleague, both of them smiling warmly at the camera. The caption read, "Grateful for second chances. Trust means everything." The reaction was immediate. Within hours, Olivia's messages flooded his phone. Olivia's messages came in waves, alternating between confusion, anger, and panic. Who is she? How could you do this to me? We need to talk, Ethan. Now, Ethan ignored them all. By the end of the day, Her messages softened, filled with desperation. "I messed up. Please, just call me. We can fix this." When Ethan finally agreed to meet her, he chose a familiar setting, the same Italian restaurant where she had first suggested their freedom. Olivia arrived looking frail, her face pale and framed by disheveled hair. Her usual confidence was gone, replaced by trembling hands that fidgeted with the hem of her sweater. "Thank you for meeting me," she said softly as she sat down across from him. Ethan nodded, his face impassive. Olivia's voice wavered as she began. "I know I've hurt you. I've made mistakes, but I thought this was what we needed. I didn't realize how much damage it would cause." Ethan leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "You thought freedom would save us." Tears welled in Olivia's eyes. "I didn't mean for it to get this far. I was just trying to find something I thought we'd lost, and did you?" Ethan asked coldly. She shook her head, her voice breaking. "No, I was wrong. I see that now. Please, Ethan, I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope, sliding it across the table. "What's this?" Olivia asked, her hands trembling as she opened it. Her breath caught as she read the bold words at the top. Separation agreement. "No, Ethan," she whispered, her voice cracking. "This isn't what I want." Ethan's gaze didn't waver. "You wanted freedom, Olivia. Now you have it." Olivia sat frozen, clutching the papers as tears streamed down her face. She tried to speak, but the lump in her throat made it impossible. Ethan stood, adjusting his jacket. "This is what you asked for," he said quietly. With that, he walked away, leaving her alone in the restaurant. Her sobs were barely muffled by the murmurs of other diners. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions for Olivia. Denial quickly gave way to desperation as she grappled with the reality of the separation agreement. The life she had taken for granted, the man she had built it with, was slipping away. She called Ethan incessantly, leaving voicemail after voicemail. "Please, Ethan, we can fix this. Don't give up on us." When those calls went unanswered, she showed up at Ryan's apartment. The sight of Ethan's belongings stacked neatly in the corner made her chest tighten. "Please," she begged Ryan at the door. "Just let me talk to him." Ryan sighed, his expression firm but sympathetic. "He doesn't want to see you, Olivia. It's over." Olivia returned to the empty house they had shared. The silent, deafening every photo on the wall. Every piece of furniture was a reminder of the life they had built together, a life she had so carelessly jeopardized. Ethan, meanwhile, was thriving at Ryan's apartment. He focused on rebuilding, throwing himself into work, logging long hours on projects that reignited his passion for architecture. He hit the gym with new determination, reconnecting with a version of himself he had almost forgotten. "You seem lighter," Ryan remarked one evening as they shared a drink on the balcony. Ethan nodded, gazing out at the Austin skyline. "For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm in control." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Just don't let her drag you back in. You've come too far for that." "She won't," Ethan said firmly. "I've made my decision." Weeks passed, but Olivia's attempts to reach Ethan didn't stop. Her messages shifted between pleas for forgiveness and bitter accusations. "You're throwing away everything we've built. I made one mistake, Ethan one, and this is how you repay me." Ethan read each message but never replied. At work, Olivia's once polished image began to crack. She struggled to focus, her thoughts consumed by regret and self-loathing. Colleagues whispered about her erratic behavior, canceled meetings, unexplained absences, and sudden tears over trivial matters. "Are you okay?" a coworker asked cautiously one afternoon. Olivia forced a tight smile. "Just a lot going on at home." Her social life, once vibrant, began to dwindle as well. Friends grew distant, and whispers about Ethan's rumored new relationship spread through their circle. One evening, scrolling listlessly through her phone, Olivia came across a new post from Ethan. The image was casual but telling. Ethan standing beside a smiling woman, her warm brown eyes filled with genuine kindness. The caption read, "Grateful for second chances. Trust means everything." Olivia's heart dropped. Her mind raced with questions. Had he moved on? Who was she? Was it serious? She dialed his number without thinking, her hands trembling as she held the phone to her ear. To her surprise, Ethan answered. "Ethan," she began, her voice breaking. "Is it true? Are you with someone else?" There was a pause before he responded, his tone calm and detached. "What does it matter, Olivia? You wanted freedom." "That's not fair," she cried. "I didn't mean it like that. I thought we could work through this. I didn't think you'd replace me." Ethan's voice hardened. "I didn't replace you, Olivia. You replaced us the moment you decided we weren't enough." The line went silent as Ethan ended the call, leaving Olivia in tears, desperate to salvage what was left of their relationship. Olivia begged Ethan to meet her one last time. He agreed, choosing the same Italian restaurant where it had all started to unravel. Olivia arrived early, her nerves evident in the way she twisted her hands in her lap. She wore a soft beige dress, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. The sleepless nights and constant crying had taken their toll. She looked worn, her usual confidence replaced by fragility. When Ethan walked in, he looked strikingly composed. His tailored navy blazer and the calm, self-assured way he carried himself made it clear that he was a man who had already moved on. "Thanks for coming," Olivia said softly as he took the seat across from her. Ethan nodded but said nothing, waiting for her to speak. "I know I don't deserve it," she began, her voice trembling, "but I need to say this. I've made mistakes, Ethan. I thought I needed something different, but I was wrong. I was selfish and stupid, and I ruined everything." She paused, her eyes pleading. "Please don't let it end like this. I love you, Ethan. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'll do whatever it takes to fix this." Ethan's face remained unreadable as he leaned back in his chair. "Do you know what I needed, Olivia?" he asked, his voice calm but cold. "I needed loyalty. I needed a partner who respected what we built together. But you decided that wasn't enough." Tears streamed down Olivia's face as she choked out. "I was lost, Ethan. I see it now. I didn't know what I had until it was gone. Please, I'm begging you, don't let this be the end." Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope, sliding it across the table. "What's this?" Olivia asked, her voice shaky as she opened it. Her breath caught as her eyes scanned the words, "Finalized divorce agreement." "You wanted freedom," Ethan said evenly. "Now you have it." Olivia's sobs were quiet but gut-wrenching. She clutched the papers in her trembling hands, her world crumbling around her. Ethan stood, adjusting his jacket with a finality that left no room for argument. "This is what you asked for," he said quietly. "I hope it brings you the peace you were looking for." He walked away, leaving Olivia alone at the table, her tears pooling on the crisp white tablecloth. For Ethan, the weeks that followed were transformative. He signed the papers, finalized the sale of their home, and began carving out a new life for himself. He traveled to places he had always dreamed of, took on new challenges at work, and embraced hobbies he had long neglected. With every step forward, the weight of Olivia's betrayal lifted. He was no longer a man defined by the cracks in his marriage. He was someone stronger, wiser, and freer. As for Olivia, the emptiness of her choices was undeniable. The vibrant life she had once cherished was gone, and with it, the man who had loved her unconditionally. Each day was a struggle, a stark reminder of what she had lost. Ethan, now fully immersed in his new chapter, looked out at the Austin skyline one evening and felt something he hadn't in a long time: peace.